Shall we talk about Celtic? Because I particularly wanted to touch on, I don't know if you guys saw and anyone watching at home, Gordon Strachan's comments today that I thought were a bit peculiar. He seemed to suggest that Kasper Schmeichel has a decision this summer to make about whether or not he quits Celtic, and I think he was implying football as well after his howler in the Scottish Cup final. He's already signed the new deal, Keith. I just thought it was really weird.
Listen, you've because my attention has been elsewhere. Did Gordon Strachan actually say he might have to think about quitting because of that mistake? In so many words, that doesn't sound like something that Gordon Strachan would say, Daniel. But I'm happy to take your word if that's the case. Not
directly, but he was asked about his howler in the Scottish Cup final, and he said, I think he's got a decision to make this summer.
Well, I don't know if maybe he's referring because that was a pretty bad injury that he got playing for Denmark, and I think Joe Hart did say himself, when you get to a certain age as a goalkeeper and you're throwing yourself around every day in training, there's a lot of impact on your upper body, and there's a lot of wear and tear, and as you get older, it's like it comes to us all. It's sometimes not just as easy as it used to be to get out of bed in the morning. But nothing that I've seen, apart from, that was a really bad mistake in the Scottish Cup final. I was tempted to say there he was due one, but you just don't expect that from Kasper Schmeichel. It was a sore one. But I've not seen anything in terms of his form or alarming signs that he's looking too old to do the job. I think Kasper Schmeichel has looked like the best goalkeeper in the country all season long, and I fully expect him to be number one for Celtic again next season. I don't have any doubt about it. I find it a curious thing.
I've got the quote in front of me now. Strachan says, there'll be signings this summer you've probably never heard of, but you'll be talking about them big time in a year. The club have a plan, it usually works. They'll be looking at attackers overall and perhaps a goalkeeper. I expect there'll be some big decisions on Rodgers' mind for the rest of the squad. Kasper Schmeichel will have a decision on whether he wants to keep going or call it a day.
No, that strikes me off, Daniel. That Gordon Strachan doesn't realise that Kasper Schmeichel signed
a new deal.
That's exactly what that sounds like.
Yeah.
As much as I like Gordon, that wouldn't really surprise me. It sounds as if he's not realised he's signed a year extension.
He's taking it for granted that he's just signing 1 year contracts, and that every summer he's going to have that decision again. Do we go again next season? Not realising that he's already decided that he is going again next season. Yeah, I think I like your theory there, Scott.
I mean, Stuart says, should he not be more concerned about getting Dundee a new manager? Which I think is a fair point. Well, we actually got a lot of comments about Schmeichel though off the back of that. Thomas says Schmeichel will be no great loss because they're much better in the Scottish Cup finals. Performances lately haven't been up to scratch. Give Sinizalo the gloves. David says Rodgers knew he shouldn't have played in the final. He wasn't fit enough. It was disrespectful to the goalkeeper Brendan dropped to make room for an unfit goalkeeper, which backfired. Stephen, though, says, doubt you'll get a decent keeper playing for Celtic unless they're at the end of their careers. The last couple were there just to retire. So, I mean, I agree with you, Keith. I think he's been the best goalkeeper in Scotland this year.
Yeah, he has, and that's a silly thing that the last two have been there just to retire. Joe Hart was a brilliant Celtic goalkeeper. Yes, there was problems every time the ball came to his feet, and there was kind of heart attack moments. I think Schmeichel's an improvement purely because of that distribution from his feet. I think they're both leaders. Sometimes, and you can say it's a retirement home. It's not a retirement home. These guys are winners who have spent their career at the top level. They enjoy winning stuff. And look at the way Joe Hart went out. What a perfect way to end a really incredible career that was for Joe Hart. Fell in love with the place. He loved it. He loved winning trophies. It's sort of it got the flame back in his belly, didn't it? At that point in his career where it could have gone either way. And Schmeichel's come up and he's done the same thing. Sinizalo does look like a Celtic keeper of the future. But I do think, in terms of timing, I think Schmeichel will remain as number one next season. And maybe, another season on after that, Sinizalo might be ready. at that point. And if he's not ready, then Celtic will go and get somebody that is. You know, since Al come into the team and he's looked fine, but I don't think he's at the level that Kasper Schmeichel is capable of performing at. And that was an absolute brain freeze in the Scottish Cup final. I totally accept that, but it was so unlike Kasper Schmeichel. I mean, Kasper Schmeichel at times this season has been immense, especially thinking about games in Europe when he's made some incredible saves.
Atalanta, he was outstanding.
Yeah, outstanding, yeah.
I've quite liked the look of Sinisalo, Daniel. It's a very small sample size, because even some of the games that he played, a few games that he played, and even some of them he didn't have a lot to do. But I mean, I think the game at it was the Old Firm game at Ibrox, the one each game, where I thought he looked decent. I think he looks very adept with the ball at his feet. So I do think, I agree with Jack. I mean, I think Schmeichel's certainly got another year as Celtic's number one, but it might just be a wee bit closer next year between him and Sinisalo. There might be more of a challenge there. And if Schmeichel were to make some big mistakes like the one at Hampden, then maybe he'll be under a wee bit more pressure. It's a bit like Jack Butland at Rangers this season. I mean, you'd have thought Jack Butland was untouchable a year ago, but it got to the point where he was making so many mistakes that Barry Ferguson was left with no choice other than to put Liam Kelly in for a massive game against Athletic Bilbao, if you remember right. So, no, I think it's a bit harsh to say Schmeichel, no, he's maybe finished, or it's time for him to go. I think Brendan Rodgers has given him that extra year because he's got no doubt he's ready to go and be a top class keeper for at least another season. But I do think there's a wee bit of pressure on him now, especially because of the mistake in the cup final. I do think Sinisalo will be kind of breathing down his neck a bit more when the new campaign starts.
And Craig says, obviously, good luck to Scott Bain, who's now left Celtic. And Ross Doohan, obviously, is coming in previously of Celtic, but from Aberdeen. He'll, I assume, be the third choice at Celtic. That is off the back, Keith, of the fact that Aberdeen have released, I think it's 12 players today.
There's been a few. There's been a few calls around the country over the last few days, isn't there? People looking at, assessing last season, assessing what's required for next season, making big changes. The amount of players, what was it, 13 we counted at Easter Road, and that's on the back of such a strong season. And there's some big players in there, guys that have made big contributions to the Hibs campaign. I know
Triantis and Rocky
Triantis has been such a big influence in the middle of the pitch. Rocky Bashiri, Hibs haven't given up hope of keeping him. They've entered into contract talks. There's another one that they've entered into contract talks with.
Junior Hoylett,
exactly. And I know he's at the wrong end of his career, but I think if you can get an agreement in place with him, he's worth keeping around. But it's a big number, and there's been quite a lot of big numbers in terms of players being released up and down the country, which points to a really busy summer again, doesn't it? So no doubt you'll probably want to take that off as well, Daniel.